Hi there, and welcome to our virtual tour. This experience has been captured in full 360, which means you are free to look around and explore as we take you on this journey. Simply click and drag on the screen, or use the video player's built-in controls to move the camera around. This is the fourth video of the Rambu Solo funeral ceremony series. In the first videos of the series, we witnessed the Mapatama Pati, or casketing of the deceased, the preparation for the Rambu Solo ceremony, including the carving of the statue, as well as the building of the Malantang, a site that includes huts for the families, and of course the Lakian, where the deceased are held during the event, as well as the welcoming of the guests and sacrificing of the livestock offerings. The last ritual of the Rambu Solo ceremony is called the Makaburu, or the burial. This ceremony begins early in the morning, starting with the sacrificing of a single buffalo and pig, whose meat is distributed to the community and traditional leaders, with some of it cooked in a large pot to be served to the guests who come to the worship. If the deceased is a Catholic, the worship process is faster, because afterwards the corpse is taken to the church for the funeral mass, and after the mass the body is taken to the family grave that has been prepared. If the deceased is a Christian, all services are held at the Rambu Solo location, which usually starts at 11 AM, after which the corpse is taken to the family graveyard. In front of you, the burial procession we are watching is of a husband and wife who are Christian. As we can see, the guests are all seated, and they are participating in the funeral mass in the huts at the Rambu Solo location. This is led by the priest, or in the Torajan language, they call it the Tomina. After the funeral mass, the coffin, which is called erong in the Torajan language, is put inside the Torajan house-shaped hut called sarigan, which will be brought down from the Lakian. Then, 5 long bamboo poles will be installed and tied to each coffin. The purpose is so that the coffin can be lifted by many people, as it is filled with not only the deceased, but also their memorable belongings, such as clothes, money, gold, Bibles, and favourite things to accompany the deceased to Puya, or heaven. As you can see, the community works together, holding 2 bamboos straight, whilst the other pole-bearers are tying the bamboos to the hut, ready to be lifted and carried along to the burial site. In the background, the families are mourning as they see the coffins leaving the ritual location. The distance from the ritual location to the graveyard for our ritual today is 300 metres through narrow streets in the village. The pole-bearers occasionally pull or push each other while shouting "Meoli" in the traditional language. The purpose is to spread good energy. As you can imagine, carrying the heavy coffin right and left on a narrow street in the village is very difficult, and so they joke around to make the job easier. In Toraja, the pole-bearer doesn't have to be a person related to the deceased. They can simply be residents of the village who are willing to help. The distance from the ritual location to the burial site can be kilometres away. However, many people will be willing to volunteer to help carry the coffin, especially if the deceased were known as being a kind person during his or her life. As you can see, our host Uchok is joining the pole-bearers carrying the coffin, just so we'll have a real virtual experience of carrying a coffin in the Torajan streets. Using the point of view of the pallbearers, let's experience what they are experiencing when they lift the coffin and walk through the narrow streets in the village. We will occasionally stop, readjusting our position and taking a short break, whilst engaging with the crowds of villagers, throwing wet soil and water at each other. The task of moving the coffin is hard, but the Torajan community know how to turn a hard task into a fun and joyful experience. After long walks with heavy coffins on their shoulders, the pallbearers have time to rest and drink some water before going up the hill to the burial site. After a short break, it's time to go up the hill where the burial site is located. The modern graves you can see here are called patane in the Torajan language, where some family members are already waiting for the arrival of the coffins. Arriving at the grave, the Toraja house-shaped hut, or sarigan, will be opened and placed next to the grave, whilst the coffins are removed to be put inside the grave. Before storing coffins in the grave, the priest will lead a prayer, and the families will be given the last chance to farewell the deceased and take a family photo, because after the door to the grave is closed, the family won't have the opportunity to open the door of the grave until the next burial of a family member, or during the manene ritual, or the ceremony of cleaning corpses, which takes place once every 3 years. According to Torajan beliefs, if the tradition is violated, it will result in bad luck, such as the rice in the fields failing to produce crops, or the coffee plantations failing. It's time to put the coffins of the husband and wife into the grave, their final resting place. These modern graves can fit several coffins, and more people nowadays are building this style of grave, called patane, or the grave that resembles the Torajan hut. The door is then shut and locked until the next burial. It is indeed a unique farewell, a lengthy and detailed procession, and a tradition that has been well preserved by the Torajan community for decades. Through a long and lively ceremony, the Torajan people have come together to honour and deliver the souls of the deceased to the realm of soul, back to eternity with their ancestors in a resting place in Puya, or heaven.